expect for Sweetwater in the future. When we talk about economic development, what do you all think of? What comes to mind?
Business.
Business. What else?
Tax base.
More tax revenue. Income.
The future.
The future. That's good.
Tourism.
Taxes going
Tourism. Yeah, I knew that. Yeah, let me tell you what we've tried to use, or I've tried to use in addressing this with the city the time I've been a commissioner and mayor. Read a definition of it one time that said that economic development is a long-term goal of raising the standard of living in a particular area, okay? Now what that means is that all of those things you talked about need some sort of a foundation under them, and that foundation is, what do you have in your pocket at home, okay? Because if you're not doing very well, then the tax revenue for the city, the income for the businesses, and all of those things that you all mentioned, you know, where's the money going to come from? So what I've tried to use the approach is, what are we doing in a long-term sense? And I think economic development always has to be long-term. There are certainly folks here with more experience in it than me, and we may get differing opinions and questions later. But I think that's what we need to be looking at when we talk about economic development, is what are we doing to see that not only ourselves have a better quality of life, standard of living, but how is that translating then to our children and our grandchildren and generations beyond them? Because that's where the foundation is going to be for being able to develop tourism and business income, tax income for the city, and you know, all the different components that you all spoke about there. One difficulty that has sort of developed in trying to kind of pull the city along toward having some kind of an economic development plan. First of all, you have to have a vision of where it is you want to be. You know, what's the old saying, you can't do what you've always done and expect a different outcome? Well, that's very true. If we aren't willing to make commitments to having a vision of the future of our community, and somebody mentioned that, you know, the future, then you know, you don't really have a goal. You don't know where it is you're trying to head with programs to have economic development. One billboard that the state had up, and I think it was environment and conservation, but some of you all may have seen it. It's been up in the last 6 or 7 months or so, is where it showed a picture of a creek, and there was like a tire laying on the bank and an old refrigerator thrown out there, and basically looked like a trash dump is what it was. And the caption, as I remember it, was, "Can you see a playground?" Well, you know, that's really what economic development sort of comes down to. You know, when you look at our community, when you look at Sweetwater, you know, can you see it better than it is, more fulfilling for the people that live here than what it is? And that's not to say you're starting from behind or a bad position or anything, but rather, can you see it better? And certainly as you look around, you know, at our tax rates, our business community and climate, the income of individuals, the education our children receive, you know, if you can look and say you're satisfied with all of those, then I don't guess economic development is a concern to you. But if you look at them and say to yourself, I think we can make that better, then you're interested in economic development, because you're interested in the future of our community, you know, the people who live here. Some things we have tried to do is, and I think we've been successful with some of these at least, is to try to establish a good relationship with the county development office, Mr. Burris over there. And you know, during the time that I've been involved, particularly as mayor, the county has been very supportive of trying to assist Sweetwater in becoming a better community. on a lot of different fronts. Some of them I know you've read about, you know, in the paper and seen proposals and what we hope can come to pass in some places in working with the county. I know that Shane's office is always ready to try, as they have inquiries about incoming business and industry, to let them know what's available in Sweetwater. You know, somewhat of a downside now is our industrial park is full. Our development board made a recommendation to the city commission to begin the process of developing a new industrial park, and so far that hasn't gone anyplace. So, you know, we have an inquiry now about some business that says, well, I need 5 acres, or, you know, do you have a building with 50,000 square feet? We don't have those available. I wish we did. But that's another day, perhaps. Some things the city has tried to do. We now have an economic development board, and our chair of that is here. When that board was started, what the city actually had was kind of a advisory group to the mayor before me, and essentially if your advice was wanted, they would call you together, and if it wasn't needed, basically you didn't meet. So we tried to formalize that into a structure, and there are specific people that are designated for that. And the ordinance we did that with puts certain things under the jurisdiction of that development board. They were, for instance, in charge of our industrial park up till we finally sold the last lot of it. So I guess there's not a lot to be in charge with there. But if the city elected to you know, develop new industrial areas, that would be part of what they did, what they do. We have the tree board, we have historic zoning, developed a website, downtown. One reason we have tried to concentrate on downtown is not to, you know, favor them or try to make other parts of the community feel like they're being ignored or their concerns aren't addressed. The idea there is that, you know, any community needs to sort of have a center, a place where you gather and take part in community type events. And what we basically tried to do is establish an area from essentially People's Bank, there where Main and Monroe Street cross, and go north up Main Street to generally the area of the library, and sort of define that as the area where we were going to put some focus and some effort into having that community center. Now, not a community center in the sense of building, you know, the auditorium and the swimming pool and all that sort of stuff, but the place where as a community we come together to discuss ideas or to have celebrations together as a community. The gazebo pretty much lends itself to that pretty well. You'll notice a lot of times the programs we have where there are public gatherings center around the gazebo. Parades usually will either start or end there one way or the other. So that's been the idea behind that. There's also been an effort to develop the square, vacant square across the railroad track. It's been designated for development in honor of those guardsmen and ladies who served in the Iraq War. It's named Hunt Commons because, as you know, Joey Hunt was a resident of Sweetwater who lost his life in that conflict. There is a concept plan for a farmer's market there. The Parks and Recreation Department also has a set of plans for us to recreate the old passenger depot downtown. Of course, all of these things take money, but you know, it's having an idea of what you want it to look like, and as I said, to start with the vision of what you want it to be, that gives you the opportunity then to take advantage of grants